a drink. You need it.
I've had a play.
G'day everybody, Andrew Maher here. Welcome to The Blueprint. Well, it was another disappointing result on Saturday night, to say the least, and one that has our club in the spotlight yet again. Joining us to dissect it all today is Carlton great Robert Walls. Remember, if you want to get involved, and we welcome that in today's show, you can send in your questions and comments via Twitter, #The Blueprint. We do welcome your correspondence. Joining me, as he does every Tuesday, is former skipper and champion of the footy club, Mark Maclure. Sellers, good to see you.
Yeah, Andy,
we're sort of back to where we started, in a funny sort of a way. Once the Blueprint started, we were close to rock bottom. That was as close as it gets on Saturday night.
We tried to lift them for a little while,
we did, didn't
but now we're back in a doldrum again. So,
could you believe it?
Yes, I could actually. I actually can, because I went in. And when you have a look at the vision here, we up in the Gold Coast. They played Essendon the week before. They flogged Essendon. They are hopeless. Seriously,
really
terrible,
are,
terrible. And they went up there with a false sense of security, play against a bunch of kids, and at the end of the day, they walked away and they didn't have the right frame of mind. Whether they lack character or whether they lack real commitment to be a part of this, and sometimes that can happen. You can lapse into those sorts of areas. It was an ordinary night for everybody in a Carlton jumper, and there was people laughing at the Blues in that area. I tell you, it was shocking. Well,
Wolsey, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on The Blueprint. It is the unfortunate byproduct of a result like that, isn't it? That you do become a bit of a laughing stock of the competition, and it doesn't sit comfortably with anyone, but it particularly doesn't sit all that comfortably here.
Look, over the last month or so, I thought they'd got a lot of respect back, the way that they'd played, and I, for one, was really happy to see that. It's been a tough year all round for everyone at Carlton. The list has been sick, we know that, but you know, a few players came back. I thought Murphy was terrific in his role as captain when Chris Judd was out. The loss was a shock. Bottom line is, these things happen.
Yeah, they do.
These things happen.
Timing can be everything, and unfortunately happened on Saturday night when we were still a chance of playing finals footy, and it's been greeted with great joy from the Carlton haters out there, and it's devastated so many people within the club. And the scenes on the siren, I mean, you fellas as players and you as a coach, Wolsey, know only too well what these fellas are sort of going through.
Well, they've just wasted a month of really good work, because I think we're all looking forward to seeing them perhaps play in finals. Well, obviously with that performance, that's not going to happen. And for everybody concerned, most people will look at two games, the Port Adelaide loss, the Gold Coast loss, and say, well, you know, they were devastating to the club. It'd be nice to be talking about the Collingwood wins and the big win over Essendon. But, you know, that really does knock everybody around.
Robbie, to me, they pick and choose. You've got too many players on their list who pick and choose when they want to play.
The list isn't that good. The list isn't that good. The recruiting's been ordinary. How can you take Matthew Watson at pick 18? He's not a pick 18 player. How can you take Kane Lucas at pick 11? He's not a pick 11 player. They've got blokes in the team who can't kick the footy. That's the recruiting into the club. You've got blokes there who try hard enough, but you've got to prop up your back line every week. You've got to throw Scotland and Gibbs back there and Yarran, because Jamison can't kick it. Joseph can't kick it. Dygan can't kick it. Yeah. So, you know, you've got to look where these players have come from and who picked them is a big part of it.
I'm sure that's going to be part of the review at the end of the season. There's so much to review at the end of 2012, and there's still a week to go. Chris Judd, after the game on Saturday night, accepted the responsibility on behalf of the players.
Oh, there's no doubt the players let everyone down tonight. It's not about Rats, it's about us, you know, letting down our entire footy club and our supporters. And, you know, the senior players need to take responsibility for that. We're the ones out on the park that can actually influence the game, and we just didn't produce tonight.
That's just too easy. It's too easy for me.
It is.
It started back against Essendon early in the year where they got bashed up, and they weren't tough enough in that night. And then it backed up against St Kilda where they actually were bashed, and because actually the blueprint was set, how to beat Carlton was to do this. Put them off their game, knock off their outside runners, and now they play against the Gold Coast, and the players lost that too.
If you were given the stat sheet for that game and not shown the score, you'd say Carlton could have won by 10 goals.
Well,
they've had about 70 more disposals, 23 more inside 50s, 8 more scoring shots, more hit-outs, more clearances. If you looked at the stat sheet and said, that's what's happened, you'd say, well, now give us a look at the score, and you know, we've won by a big margin. But what it also tells you is that they butcher the footy.
Yeah. So is it?
And you've got two blokes up forward. Your key forwards kick 2 goals 9 between them, Waite and Casbolt.
So is it a talent issue or is it a development issue? Because these players are all coming from the same pool. We've kind of kicked this around a few times on the Blueprint this year about whether we're getting the right blokes in, as you say. You wonder whether we are getting the right players into the group, or are we developing them, as well as they're being developed at other clubs? It's hard to know the answer to that question unless you're inside on a regular basis.
I've got a little idea that they haven't been developed well. I think we found when Brett lost all the players and all those kids came in, we found that we had some talent there. But what's it been doing for the last 12 or 18 months? Some have been injured and some have been not actually developed to where they want to be. We see a Hawkins who now was a poor kick. He was a poor kick for 4 years. And now he's a good kick. That comes with confidence and all those sorts of things. It's hard to get confidence when you're battling around down the background out at Preston there and not getting talked to or pushed along by the senior coaching staff.
Well, 2 players who've impressed in the last month or so, Casbolt and Bell. Casbolt with his ability to mark and present, and Bell with his strength in close. Both of them are lousy kicks. Yeah. So that can be improved, and they need to be developed and it's not going to happen in 12 months. It'll take 3 or 4 years.
McGuinness and White have been pretty good too.
Yeah. I think they've been terrific, those 2 young fellas coming into a back line, and you talk about the back line. McGuinness goes down in that game against Gold Coast, so there's no Laidlaw, there's no Jamieson, there's no Henderson, and then a kid who's propping it up, he goes down in the first minute.
You two are lucky to play in eras where you're part of super teams, great leaders, great depth of leaders, super players you play with, great champions. And you played like teams who knew how good you were. When you had to turn it on, you could turn it on. It's a different landscape now with, the draft and salary caps and the distribution of talent across the competition. Philosophically, do you reckon that Carlton still occasionally gets ahead of itself? It's been thrown at Carlton by people from outside the club on occasions in recent weeks. Do you reckon it exists?
That amuses me about people saying those times we had great teams and we bought teams. That's all rubbish. That all came from a zoning area where they were developed and taught how to play, then brought into the football club and indoctrinated into what was required to be a good Carlton player, to be a good team. It wasn't that we were better players, that we were just really indoctrinated by, I think it came from Barassi in those times, Robbie. He set a standard. This is what you do, continual improvement. All those little things that make you better. Be a better leader. Be selfless. Be all those sorts of things. And I don't see it now.
The thing I look at the Carlton leadership 8, if you like, they're too much introverted. There's Brock McLean I give credit to. I thought his career was shot halfway through the year. At least he stood up and had a go and doesn't take a backward step. But there's too many of them who've played over 100 games who play as if they've played 40 games, without authority out on the field.
We saw Mark Murphy as they left the ground on Saturday night. He was clearly aware of the fact that something was amiss as they exited the arena at Metricon Stadium at the long break. And does this sort of stuff happen enough? I don't know whether this means anything. I don't know whether a player pulling the group together and having a few words to them resonates and changes anything. But we get enough guys in the group who actually do a bit of this sort of stuff.
Well, it's the first time I've seen Murphy grab hold of the group. And as I said, in the absence of Chris Judd, I think he's been terrific with his leadership. But you'd love to see Bryce Gibbs doing that. You'd like to see Simpson doing it. You'd like to see even Cruiser, who's your ruckman is such an important player. Now he's a lovely lad. But your ruckman, you need to be one who's out there and he's pushing and shoving and encouraging, because he's in more contests than anyone, your ruckman. Yep. So you want him to be an extrovert, and that has to come through with Cruiser.
Off the back of that loss, of course, comes all the commentary and exposure and focus on the coach, and time will tell what the footy club's going to do with that. We've been swamped by it since Saturday night. What's he going through, Wolsey? You've been a coach. We talk about it, we move on. 5 minutes later, we're thinking about something else. But I suspect there's not a minute of the day go by where Brett Ratton isn't carrying this around with him. And that must be such a heavy load for a man to have to take with him every step of the way.
I reckon he's carried a load all year, and I reckon he's carried it really well. He's a better coach today than he was 12 months ago, purely because of what he's gone through, the scrutiny that he's gone through. Obviously, it's intensified in the last week. So it would be like a weight on your shoulders. But, as Mark said, few minutes ago, you know what you're going into as a coach. So you've got to be prepared to wear the heat. There's always a coach wearing the heat. It was Primus a month ago.
Yep.
It's Ratton at the moment.
And you shouldn't duck your head. You've got to stand there and cop it, because this is the job you've put yourself into. There's a queue a mile long waiting to get into it. What for? Who knows why? But that's what happens. And sometimes you get the knife too, right in the middle of the back. And unfortunately, it looks like it's going to happen.
Well, you know,
this way.
tipping points can arrive in a coach. You know, tipping points can arrive in a coach's career. You know, you're under the pump. You're not quite sure what the future's going to look like, but then you have a loss like Carlton had on Saturday night, like the one you had against the Brisbane Bears a few years ago now.
You have some experience in this area, Robert.
And it just,
I've got plenty of experience. Look,
Can
if you say
yeah.
tipping points, OK, in my case at Carlton, the Brisbane Bears lost. And you know what? People get embarrassed. And therefore they think someone's got to pay a price here. So everyone at Carlton's embarrassed because they got beaten by the Gold Coast Suns. Aren't you allowed to be beaten by the Gold Coast Suns? Is there something out there that says you can't do that? OK, it's a game they should have won and they blew it. Carlton supporters are embarrassed, the president, the board's embarrassed, the sponsors are embarrassed.
I responded yesterday. The president, Stephen Kernahan, spoke to the Carlton members through the club website and discussed the fact that the agenda won't be set by interests outside the footy club.
Whilst we're very emotional about the weekend and still are, it's only Monday, we won't be making knee-jerk reactions. We spoke, as I said, a few months ago and over the last few weeks to certain sections of the media. We're waiting till the end of the season. We'll look at all operations at the end of the season. The only difference is we now know when that is. It's the end of next weekend. We can't make the 8, which we're all very disappointed about, but we will have a look at everything then and then only. So we'll be running our agenda, not anyone else's agenda.
Well, we're talking to the Carlton family here, and we're all part of that family to a large degree. Brett Ratton's a crucial member of that great family. Have you got a clear agenda, a clear idea as to what's going to happen in the next 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 days?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
All I can do is tell you what I think.
Yep.
Right? I think Ratton should stay as coach. Why? He's coached 5 years. He's got a strike rate of 53.5%. You've got to look at the big picture. 53.5%. Would his position be in doubt if Malthouse was not available?
I think we all know the answer to that question.
OK, so Mick Malthouse is available. People get caught up in believing that there are messiahs in coaching and so on. You've got to look at Malthouse's record at Collingwood. After 7 years, his record was under 50%.
No, I think they've already made the decision. And Robert brings up some really good points and all those sorts of things, but I think they've made the decision. But I'd like them to finish it off quick. When it gets to the end of the year, and if it's going to be done, do it by Wednesday.
One way or the other.
It has to be done one way or the other. He's either in or he's out. Otherwise, you damage the brand. And our brand can't be damaged. I mean, we're trying to push into 50,000 members, all those sorts of things. We can't have that if we've got bickering amongst each other. This club has been full of off-field fighting as long as I can remember, and so long as you can remember, Robert. Maybe it's time to stop it, but one thing you need to do is that when it was done with haste and fixed, and we're on our way again, and let's go, because at this moment we're all suffering and it's wrong.
Well, emotions are running high. Don't forget you can join me in the Google Plus Hangout after the show to keep the conversation going, and remember you can tweet or email us comments and questions via Twitter, #TheBlueprint, or email the club with the blueprint in the subject line, blues@carltonfc.com.au. Let's get some of those questions for you, Wolsey. They like firing them in. You're the special guest today, so we've got a couple that have been sent in via social media. Rod asks the question, do you think the on-field leadership group is more to blame for our inconsistent form, more so than Brett Ratton?
Well, the leadership group, Carazzo's Mr. Slice, and I reckon he's improved as a player and a leader. I reckon Murphy's come on. Juddy does it by example more than voice. I'd like to see Jamison do a lot more. You know, I see the big bloke at fullback and you want your key defender to be a strong man. I'm sick of him looking at the screen to say, why is that free kick being paid against me? I'd like to see Jared Waite do more. Like, he's been there for 10 years, 12 years maybe, and we're still saying, is he going to deliver the potential that we've been looking for so long? So, as a leadership group overall, do they do enough? No, they don't.
Adrian has posted on Twitter, Rob, I don't care what we want What do we need to challenge in 2013?
Well, you need two fellas to stand up in the back line, and that's Jamieson and Henderson as two tall defenders, and you can build around that. You need Cruiser to be given most of the ruck work, and perhaps Hampson does a little bit more, and Hampson needs to develop as a forward. You need Waite to not give away free kicks, hopefully have an injury-free season, and he can be your key forward. I like Garlett, I like Eddie Betts. I think, you know, they're good. Armfield really tackles in hard and locks the ball in the forward line. That's good. Simpson's a pretty good player. I reckon Scotland's been magnificent over the last couple of years.
So what you're saying is it's there. It's just got to be...
You're just probably down the middle. You know, your fullback Jamieson, Henderson to stand up, Waite to stand up.
Okay, Wolsey, it's an interesting time at our footy club, and we're going to wait to see exactly what happens in the next 6 or 7 days. Last question to go out, what does round 23 mean? We're almost caved in now and given the season away. What does this week mean from a club perspective?
Well, you just hope the players have a crack. You hope the players feel embarrassed and ashamed of their performance last week and have a crack. That's all you want.
Thanks for coming on.
My pleasure.
It's good. That's all we got time for today. It's been fantastic to hear the thoughts of Robert Wolsey. He speaks from his heart and with a fair bit of data to back it all up, so it's hard to argue some of the points he makes.
No, there's no problems there. It's all part of the game, isn't it?
Good to see you again. We'll be back next week to do it for the last time. Mark Maclure joining us as he always does on The Blueprint. That is it for now. We'll be back the same time next week, 1 p.m. Thanks for your company. Bye for now.